Time is 6:34. Two new bills just signed into law will change the way the state of Texas handles human trafficking cases.
The legislation brings harsher penalties for offenders and new protections for victims. Senate Bill 1212 makes trafficking of any person an automatic first-degree felony that carries a sentence of 25 to 99 years or life in prison. House Bill 2306 ensures anyone convicted of trafficking a child or someone with a disability will not be granted parole ever.
They get sentenced to 50 years in prison. They're going to spend every day of that 50 years in prison.
Now, we asked our Emma Kay to dig into recognizing the signs of human trafficking and how you can get help. Emma, good morning.
Good morning. It's important to remember that human trafficking can happen anywhere, but most trafficking happens in busy areas with lots of people. Investigators say that's because it's easier for criminals to hide what's happening. Other things to watch out for include if someone is being isolated from their family, friends, or support system. They might rarely leave home or be unallowed to go out in public alone. That brings us to a noticeable lack of control. If they're deferring to someone else to answer their questions or if their answers seem rehearsed. They may also show unusual fear, anxiety, or paranoia around law enforcement. And keep an eye out for this. If you see someone making this sign, thumb tucked into their fingers with their palm curling over it, especially if they're making it back behind their back, they could be trying to signal to you that they're in trouble. The important thing is to act if something feels off. You don't have to involve yourself, though. Just play it safe and call the authorities.
All right, we'll be on the lookout for that hand signal. Very interesting. Emma, thank you for bringing that to our attention. It's 6:35. Of course, if you or someone you know is a victim of human trafficking, there's help available. You can contact the East Texas Crisis Center for some support. Call the number on your screen. It's 903-595-5591, and they have 24/7 support available. Or go to etcc.org.